Because if I have to undo the dishwasher, I have to undo the wires here. And here's the drain line. I don't generally like to undo this right here. There's a little clamp. You see that clamp right there? You have to kind of pinch it together. And that's kind of tricky to do because this line's in your way, and doing it with a pair of pliers, wiggling that off. Last thing I want is to jerk it off and not have it be able to be put back on proper. Okay, so I might have to disconnect that up by the garbage disposal. And you see that line? Here's something else odd. You see this line here goes directly up to the garbage disposal and ties in right there. Well, if you know anything about construction, usually this line goes directly up to an air gap that's sitting on top of the sink. There's no air gap there, is there? They ended up deciding to put a little hand soap dispenser, and this was probably a 3-hole sink, and there's probably a couple holes underneath here or something, or maybe a 4-hole sink, 3 holes here, 1 there, something this fit on here, and then they used that. That's where the air gap should have came up, and they didn't have enough room to put the air gap, and they decided to leave it off. Well, if this would have been inspected, no inspector would ever allow that, would they, Pops?
I was looking for it the other day.
Would you have passed that? Well, you're not the plumbing inspector.
I was looking for it, I didn't see it.
Yeah, there's no air gap on here, and usually you need an air gap to let it drain properly instead of it going gluck, 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 gluck. Because then this pipe here would go up to an air gap, and then it has a Y, and it comes back down with a different line, a black, heavy gauge rubber tube that goes from there, and that's usually what goes over to here. I'm not going to fix that. You know, I may point it out to them, and I don't know what they're going to do, but this has been sitting here for over 30 years, and apparently they must not have much of a problem. But either way, I would have to disconnect this here. That way I can shove this back through the hole as I'm pulling the dishwasher out. And see the copper line that gets hooked up there, I don't want to do that because this is stiff line. Nowadays they have flexible braided pipe. They don't generally do it that way. So what I'd have to do on that is get up underneath here and disconnect it here at this fitting, slip this off, and then you know, the drain line is disconnected underneath the sink. The wires would be disconnected from there. Then I could pull this dishwasher out. The only thing that's securing this dishwasher, and most dishwashers, is 2 little screws up here. You see there's a bracket there with the screw, and there's a bracket here with the screw, and usually that's all that's holding in a dishwasher. Now sometimes, depending what kind of dishwasher you get, you might have some mounting screws on the side instead of on the top. Now they're going to install a granite countertop up here. I don't know if they're going to put a piece of wood underneath that for the screws for the dishwasher or not, or if they don't, they may have to get in here and drill some holes and put some screws in there, you know, some stainless steel screws or something like that to hold this up against there. You know, we'll see what they do with that. I'm not really responsible for that. Okay, so let's get back at it. I think what I'm going to do is drill this hole over here and see if we can't fish this conduit over. Now here's something else to our project. I'm holding the camera so hopefully it doesn't wobble around too much. You see this? This is Romex cabling. It's exposed underneath the sink. That's another no-no. And it's going up to a surface-mounted electrical box is screwed to the back of the cabinet. Sometimes, most of the time, that's flush with the wall. This way they decided just to do this, and then they ran the Romex like that. Well, what I'm going to end up doing is taking the power out of there. And that's why I got to get this conduit in here. And I'm calling it conduit because I'm going to put the Romex inside it, my new stuff. Okay, I'm going to take I was going to get some 1/2-inch aluminum flex. I was going to use that, but I went to the store and I saw this stuff. And I thought, that's kind of slick. This was half the price. And this is like heavy gauge plastic, and there's fittings that go on there. And I'm going to use this for my conduit. Then I'm going to take some Romex like this, and I'm going to shove that through this. It's plenty big, okay? And then that'll be protected as it goes, because you're supposed to have that in some sort of conduit. Now here they didn't have that, so when I take this wire, when I work on that, I'm going to put another little piece on that too, just to be nice, because I've got to redo this plug anyways, this outlet receptacle. That wire going up, that's for the wall switch right there for the garbage disposal. We're going to do away with that. Okay, I've already determined this is our main power coming into here. We're going to come up into there, and we're going to add another wire and go down, and that's why we got to get that conduit in there and fish it under here, and that's going to be our power. And go there, and it's going to go through the back of this cabinet, and then from here I'm going to have to poke a hole through the sheetrock. The other side of this stud, there's a wall stud about there. I've got just enough room. I lucked out on that, didn't I? I think I could poke a hole right there, and then from there I can just have the raw Romex go into the wall, into a cut-in box that we're going to have to cut in and install in here. Let's see if that stud, let's see here, if that stud was not, where's my hand at? Oh, it's up higher. If the stud wasn't there, what if the stud was back behind this and I couldn't get to it? Then I'd have to cut a hole through here with an extension bit or something and drill through the stud, fish it through, and go into the wall over here to drill through the stud if the stud was located about there, let's say. Well, I kind of lucked out with that because there's a stud here, and usually it's 16-inch bays, and the next stud is about over here. And I know that because I knocked on the wall. I know a stud is right there. And when you hear the lower noise, that's hollow. That's a hollow cavity. Now listen. See, then it goes hollow again, see? Hollow. There's a stud right there. Hollow. And then the stud is over a little bit, and you can measure 16 inches, so I just lucked out on that. Okay, all right, let's get to it. Got to figure out exactly where to drill that hole and get her done. Now this is what I'm using for conduit. It's watertight. They call it conduit. It's 1/2 inch, and see, I got to drill a hole, and I'm going to use a paddle bit. And this is the only paddle bit I was able to locate. And see, that's going to fit just fine. That's going to give me a little bit of a slop. In fact, I might drill 2 holes and try to break out a little bit so I can kind of move this around to try to fish it in there. So somehow I'm going to have to straighten this out. And if it doesn't straighten out enough, you know, because it's been sitting like that at the store. That was like $11 for a 25-foot piece. The 1/2 inch aluminum flexible conduit was like $20. So this was $10 cheaper about. Now the fittings cost just a little bit more, and they're kind of slick. I'll show you that after a while. But see, I'm gonna have to take out enough of this and kind of straighten this out as much as I can, because you can see that once I shove it through the hole, it's gonna curl up, and I've got to somehow get this and try it a few times, see if I can shove that through.
Hand it to me.
We're gonna go fishing in a little bit. See if I can do it.
Hand it to me.
Think I can do it, Pops?
Hand it to me.
Hand it to you. Oh, okay. I'll cut the length of it, and I'll have you start straightening it out for me. Okay.
Right.
All right. Cool. So no matter what, I know I've got to use this flex from this cabinet and through the cabinet into the wall. Then I can stop this flex, and then I can go with Romex cabling, okay? So I'm going to use this stuff here at least from about there on over. About 6 feet there, and then I got to go up to the plug at least 7 feet or so, and maybe just a little bit more, 8 feet. I could cut it 8 feet. Double check. I don't want to mess up with this. If I have to cut, you know, I could cut a little bit longer and then cut it again if I have to. You know.
Good idea.
Maybe I should do that. Make it well, at least 8 feet. Actually, you know what? I'll make it 10 feet because I'm gonna need a piece up in here, maybe 1.5 feet long, and then I can cut that off the end. So I can measure out 10 feet from that and then start straightening that out. Get my pops to work. The other cool thing about this is you can cut it, apparently, with a sheetrock knife. Now don't cut it up against the floor. This is brand new linoleum. I'm just going to use my knife here and kind of saw it off. Okay, there it is. That's kind of slick.
Yep.